Alright guys, we've decided to do an indoor project for tonight since it's sort of cold and rainy outside and cold and damp in the garage. We decided that we would move inside for this evening and do a interior project. So we're going to take a look at the gauges actually for the TR250, and I'll show you what I've got on the table. Alright, as usual I'm fortunate to have a few spare gauges, let's say. So I've got an extra 2 tacks and an extra speedometer for this car. These are the two that actually came out of the car. And then if you recall, I'd mentioned that the smaller gauges in the center cluster of the car were incorrect as far as the year is concerned. So these gauges that have a chrome bezel on them and they have the needles pointing up are for later cars, I believe from 73 to 76. So my 73 TR6 actually has these gauges in them. The correct gauges for these cars actually have black bezels, like this one, with the needles pointing down. But as you can see, some of these gauges are in need of some restoration, let's say. The paint is flaking off the bottom of this gauge and is pretty dirty on the interior of the case. So the plan is to have a look at restoring these gauges and trying to clean them up as best as possible. Having said that, I'm not going to do a complete tear down of these gauges like some of the guys I've seen do them. They take the gauge right out of the case and bead blast the case, and paint the interiors of the case, change out the light filters on the inside, change out the cork gaskets, etc. I'm hoping to get away with a little bit lighter restoration on these gauges, and that will just entail, like I said, taking the glass off, taking the bezels off, and cleaning up the gauge faces a little bit with some pledge and some glass cleaner, etc. I'll show you what I do when I get to that point. So we're going to just do a quick restoration on these gauges. Let's say we're not going to put a lot of time and energy into them. We do want to get them looking better, and hopefully they're functional. I've never had these obviously in the car, so I'm hoping they're at least functional. We'll find out, I guess, when we do install them in the car eventually. As mentioned, the car came with these gauges. Anyway, that's it for now, guys. We'll take you along once I get some of these gauges apart. Okay, guys, we're going to start on the speedo gauge first, and I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to pick this up or not, but you can see quite a bit of little crusty bits around the edge of the glass, for example, that need to be cleaned up. And the gauge face itself is pretty dusty inside. I know it's kind of hard to tell with the glare from the lights, but trust me, it's not looking so good. As far as the back of the gauge is concerned, this is the voltage stabilizer on the back of the gauge. This is the reset cable for the trip meter, so that actually screws into down below the dash, so you can access it. These are the light holders. So anyway, there's a quick look of the back of the gauge. So what we're going to do is we're going to pry these little tabs. You can see these little tabs here. We're going to pry these little tabs that will release the bezel from the face of the gauge and then release the glass. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to break out the small screwdrivers and pry those tabs back. Alright guys, so we've got the bezel off the speedometer gauge, and here are the parts to it in order of assembly. And you can see here that with the glass piece, you can see the gasket that sits underneath the bezel is in pretty rough shape. It's basically gone. It's totally perished. So we're going to pull that out of there. I don't have a replacement for this, unfortunately, so I may have to make a gasket out of some gasket material. So we'll see how we're going to approach that, but just wanted to give you a quick shot of that before I go ahead and clean that out. As far as the gauge face is concerned, it's in pretty good shape, so I'm happy about that. Alright guys, we've managed to separate all the bezels and glasses from the small gauges. And we've managed to take apart the large gauges, which have a few more elements to them, let's say. And what I've done is I've taken a few spares from the spare gauges. So I've got a couple extra pieces here if need be. I've got a couple extra pieces of glass that I'm going to clean up, and I've got one extra bezel that I'm going to clean up just in case. Because I am going to probably media blast these and repaint them. I know I'm going to paint them, but I figured I may as well paint an extra just in case while I'm at it. So That's about it for now, guys. I think we're going to maybe start trying to clean up the faces of some of these smaller gauges a little bit, see how well they clean up. To do that, basically what I normally do is I use either Pledge or something like Endust on a Q-tip and just wipe that down. That seems to work pretty well. So that's what we're going to do, is we're just going to play around with a little bit of Pledge and Endust to clean up those gauge faces. Oh, and here's a quick shot of all the gasket material that it basically is on the inside of the case, actually on the inside of the bezels. So as you can see, it's all perished. So we need all new gaskets for the piece between the bezel and the glass. So we're going to have to make some of those, I think, by hand. So we'll see if I can find some really thin gasket material and fashion some of those by hand. Alright guys, we have all the bezels off and ready to go in the blasting cabinet for tomorrow. Micah is just inspecting my work. Anyway, we're going to put these in the blasting cabinet tomorrow night or tomorrow after work, and we'll give these a coat of paint. I'll show you what I've decided to use for paint on these bezels tomorrow. So we will see you tomorrow after work. Have a good night. Alright guys, just coming up to 20 to 10, and we decided to come out to the garage and do a little sandblasting. I wanted to be able to get these into paint so I can get them drying overnight. So we're going to blast them, and then we're going to paint them with this trim and bumper paint from Duplicolor. It's supposed to be fairly close, I think, to that color. This is just says black trim and bumper paint. I think it's sort of a flat black, which these are, so, or a semi-gloss black. So that should be fine. So that's what we're up to. Alright guys, just coming up to 11:30, and those bezels are now painted. So we'll just wait for those to dry a little bit. They've got 3 coats on them now. So wait for them to dry a little bit, then we'll move them off that piece of paper towel just onto the table. I don't want them to stick to the paper towel. So like I said, probably about 15 minutes from now I'll just come out and I'll just move them over carefully onto the table. They are sitting up slightly raised on the bottom because of those little tabs that sort of keep them attached to the back of the gauges. Sort of makes them stand a little bit proud, so I don't think they'll stick to the table. Anyway, so just thought I'd give you a quick look at that. And like I said, we'll come out one more time just to move them over, and that'll be it for tonight. Alright guys, just coming up to 10 minutes to 12. And we've got the Blue Jays keeping us company. They're on the west coast in Oakland, so it's a late game tonight. Anyway, a little arts and crafts project. We've got some Felpro gasket material here. This is I believe the rubber fiber sheet. So we've created a few gaskets for the inside of there's a speedometer and tack case, and then obviously there's the small gauges. All I've done is just taken the glass. We've cleaned the glass up actually with some Plastex polish just to get all the residue off the outside edges of the glass, and then we've Windexed them clean, so those are looking better. Anyway, obviously these gaskets are for the inside of the gauge cases, so we'll see how they fit tomorrow once we bring in those bezels from out in the garage, the ones that I just painted tonight as well. So that's it for tonight guys. We'll come back tomorrow and hopefully get these gauges back together. Alright guys, we're back on the gauges today. We've got the trim rings out of the garage, the freshly painted trim rings, and they look good. So we're just about to start assembling the gauges again. So we're going to see if my new gaskets work. They actually go on the inside of the ring here. So we're going to probably have to trim those up a little bit, but we'll see if they fit. Alright guys, we've got the gauges back together, and I have to say that they look pretty good. They cleaned up nicely. The bezel turned out well. All the interiors have been polished, and the glass has obviously been cleaned. New gaskets, etc. So I think they look pretty good. The only thing I'd probably go back and change was to do paint the needle on the oil gauge. It's a little bit yellow, but you know what? That's just being really overly picky. I think they look much better than they did. So that's it for now, guys. We'll move on to something else, and we'll put these somewhere safe. Alright guys, on to some larger parts. We're now wire brushing the brake back plates for the rear brakes. So we're going to wire brush those up. I just started here. You can see I'm starting to get some of that rust off. So we'll continue wire brushing this until these are clean, and we'll give them a nice coat of black paint. Alright guys, just coming up to 8 o'clock, and it's Tuesday, June 6th, and we're at T-minus 103. And we've got some big parts done tonight. So we've got the brake back plates all stripped down and cleaned up and ready to be primed and painted. And on the other side we've got this chassis cross tube. This goes as a strengthening piece just in front of the engine between the two suspension towers on a TR250. There is one thing I wanted to mention, and let me just get over to the other side of these parts. Oh, by the way, I've got the brake drums all ready to be painted as well. I've got those all stripped down and looking good. So that was a bit of effort to get them looking like that, I can tell you. So we'll get some primer and paint on those. I wanted to mention that anybody that's doing a 250 restoration, that I thought I could actually use this bar I had stripped actually for my TR6 restoration. It was a leftover, but it's actually different. It's quite different than the TR250 version. So this cross tube is specific to the TR250. I believe it's probably the same as what's going to be on the TR4 as well, but just thought I'd mention that if you're looking for interchangeable parts, you can't use the one from the TR6. Anyway, we're going to get these into primer and again eventually into paint. We'll bring you back when we do. Alright guys, 10 minutes to 10, and we've got the first coat of the black on. We're just out to do another coat, but I thought I would just take this video before I go ahead and do that, because I'm going to get the garage filled up with overspray. It's a chilly night, so I've got all the doors closed. It's actually causing a little bit of problems with the paint drying. So anyway, we'll put the next coat on and we'll let it sit overnight. I think it's supposed to be a little warmer tomorrow. Anyway, things are looking good. Just want to let you know, I think this is my 500th video, if you can believe that. I can't believe it. So a bit of a milestone for me. So thanks everybody for watching and subscribing and commenting over these last few years. We'll probably be out here tomorrow and start working on video number 501. Alright guys, that's it for tonight. See you tomorrow.